If you're a man over 60, there's something you need to hear, and it might just shock you because the very thing you've been doing in private for decades, something you thought was harmless, maybe even healthy, could actually be silently damaging your prostate, weakening your heart, draining your testosterone, and leaving your emotional health in a slow decline. And the worst part, almost no one's talking about it. Advice for the elderly. I'm Dr. Anthony. For over 30 years, I've worked with thousands of men, veterans, CEOs, husbands, fathers, helping them navigate the complex world of aging hormones and vitality. And again, I've uncovered the same hidden thread. Men over 60 are making dangerous mistakes in how they masturbate without ever knowing the consequences, because here's the truth. Masturbation isn't bad. Done mindfully, it can support your health, boost your mood, and even help regulate your hormones. But the way most men do it, especially after 60, comes with silent risks no one ever warned you about in this conversation. I'll reveal the 4 most common mistakes I see in men your age, mistakes that can quietly chip away at your energy, your erections, your sleep, and even your sense of purpose. But I'll also show you exactly how to correct them naturally, simply, and without shame. Near the end of this video, I'm going to reveal one crucial mistake, something almost every man overlooks. And it might just explain the subtle anxiety, the emptiness, or those restless nights you've been experiencing lately. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover could quietly reshape the next 10, even 20 years of your life. But before we dive in, if you're serious about protecting your health and aging with power and clarity, be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an important tip, crafted specifically for men over 60. And if this message resonates with you, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, type 0, and let me know how I can better support your journey to lasting vitality. Now let's jump in, starting with the first and possibly most overlooked mistake I see in older men. It's something that seems harmless at first, but over time it can subtly rewire your brain, dull your natural arousal, and slowly erode both your emotional and sexual well-being. Mistake number 1, using porn designed for younger brains. This is hands down the most common issue I come across, and it's affecting more men than you might realize. In fact, I'd go so far as to say most men over 60 are doing this without any awareness of the quiet damage it's doing behind the scenes. Now, I know that may sound dramatic, but after more than 30 years working in men's health, I've seen this pattern play out time and time again. Here's how it usually unfolds. A man in his 60s or 70s comes to me with what seems like a basic concern: low libido, trouble staying aroused, or difficulty connecting with his partner. But when we look closer, the root cause often traces back to something deeply personal and almost never talked about: how he masturbates, and more importantly, what he watches when he does. When he does, you see the modern pornography landscape isn't what it used to be. It's been engineered, yes, engineered to trigger intense dopamine spikes in the brain, rapid scene changes, extreme scenarios, exaggerated performances. It's all designed to hook younger minds that haven't yet experienced the long-term effects of overstimulation. But when men over 60 engage with this kind of content regularly, it doesn't just excite, it overwhelms your brain at this stage of life, processes arousal and reward differently than it did at 25 or 30. Dopamine levels are lower, the receptors less sensitive. And what used to be arousing now needs more stimulation just to feel the same. That's not failure, that's biology. But the trap is this: the more you rely on hyper-stimulating porn, the more disconnected your brain becomes from real, natural arousal over time. This can lead to something called arousal desensitization, where nothing, no touch, no fantasy, no partner feels enough. Men often come to me thinking there's something wrong with their bodies, but in many cases it's not physical at all, it's neurological. Their brains have been conditioned by content made for a much younger, more dopamine-hungry version of themselves, and instead of helping them feel alive and connected, this habit ends up making them feel flat, frustrated, and alone. I remember one patient, David, a 67-year-old retired pilot. He told me he felt numb after climax, like the moment he was done, everything just shut off inside him, no satisfaction, no connection, just a wave of emptiness. We traced it back to years of using increasingly intense content late at night, alone, without ever considering how it might be rewiring his experience of pleasure. The change we made wasn't complicated, but it changed everything for him. So if this sounds familiar, if you find yourself needing more, feeling less, or wondering why the real thing doesn't excite you anymore, know that you're not alone, and more importantly, you can reverse it. Start by stepping away from the screen. Use your imagination, your memory, your senses, slow it down. Listen to your breath, reconnect with your body. You might be surprised at what you feel again when you stop chasing intensity and start inviting presence now. While this mistake is common, the next one is even more subtle and far more damaging to your physical health. It's something most men don't even think twice about, but it could be quietly wearing down your erection quality, your circulation, and your prostate health. Let's talk about that. Next, if you're still here and these insights are hitting home, go ahead and comment the number 1 below, just to let me know you're still with me. Now let's keep going and take a closer look at the second mistake that most men never realize they're making. Mistake 2, masturbating aggressively or in a rush. This next mistake is one that nearly every man makes, especially those of us who've been carrying the same habits from our younger years into our 60s and beyond. It's not something we talk about, and honestly, most men don't even realize they're doing it. But over time, it quietly erodes the very systems we depend on for sexual vitality and long-term health. Here's what I mean. When we were younger, most of us developed a habit of masturbating quickly. It made sense at the time. Privacy was limited. We were full of energy, and release was often the only goal. So we learned to rush, to grip tightly, to finish fast. That kind of urgency became ingrained like muscle memory. But here's the problem. What worked at 25 doesn't serve you at 65. At this age, your tissues, blood vessels, and nerves are more delicate. The circulation that supports healthy erections is slower. Your pelvic floor, your prostate, and your hormonal rhythms are more sensitive. So when you engage in fast, aggressive, high-pressure stimulation, you're putting unnecessary strain on your system, especially on your erection quality and prostate health. I've had countless patients tell me, I just don't feel as firm as I used to, or I climax too quickly now and it's hard to recover. When I ask about how they touch themselves, almost every single one describes a tight, rushed, goal-focused experience, and I get it that pattern's been with them for decades, but what they don't realize is that the intensity they're used to is now doing more harm than good. Take John, a 72-year-old retired firefighter. He told me he still masturbated regularly, but noticed it was becoming less satisfying. It feels mechanical. He said, like something I'm supposed to do, but not something I enjoy anymore. When we explored how he did it, the answer was clear. He was treating it like a chore to get over with, not an experience to tune into. After some guidance, he shifted to a slower, more mindful approach. Within weeks, his sensitivity improved, and he felt a deeper connection to his body than he had in years. The truth is, your body, after 60, is still capable of deep pleasure and powerful release, but it needs a different kind of care. It needs time, softness, and attention. It needs breath by softening your grip, slowing your pace, and allowing arousal to build. Gradually, you're not just protecting your physical health, you're retraining your nervous system to feel more, connect more, and release in a way that nourishes rather than drains. Most men never think twice about how they focus only on the end, but the real transformation happens in the approach. You don't need more stimulation, you need more presence. And while this mistake can wear down your body, the next one hits even deeper. It's something most men turn to without thinking, often in the quiet of night, believing it helps them relax. But in truth, it may be the very reason they wake up, tired, restless, and hormonally off balance. Let's dive into that next mistake. 3. Masturbating as a mistake. 3. Sleep aid, especially late at night. This one might surprise you because for many men, it feels like a helpful habit. In fact, when I bring it up with my patients, the most common response I get is, wait, what's wrong with that? They're genuinely caught off guard because for years, sometimes decades, they've used masturbation as a way to unwind. At the end of the day, it feels natural, even harmless, but over time it becomes one of the most misunderstood and quietly disruptive patterns I see in men over 60. Here's why: as we get older, our sleep patterns naturally shift. We produce less melatonin, our circadian rhythms become more fragile, and our ability to fall into deep restorative sleep can be easily thrown off balance. Now add to that a nightly routine where you stimulate your nervous system, flood your brain with dopamine. And if porn is involved, stare at a glowing screen in the dark. You may think you're relaxing, but physiologically, you're doing the opposite. What most men don't realize is that climax, especially when reached through intense or artificial stimulation, causes a short-term spike in dopamine, followed by a sharp drop. That crash doesn't soothe the nervous system. It can actually activate stress hormones like cortisol, making it harder for your brain to transition into real rest. And that's why so many men wake up groggy, unrefreshed, or even anxious without ever connecting the dots back to what happened the night before. I remember speaking with Alan, a 68-year-old former teacher, who told me he hadn't had a solid night of sleep in over a year. He'd gotten used to ending every day with a quick session, thinking it helped him take the edge off. But when we look closer, that routine was spiking his heart rate and disrupting his hormonal rhythm every single night. Once he moved that habit to earlier in the evening before dinner, even his sleep began to stabilize for the first time in months. He started waking up with energy again. The issue here isn't the act itself, it's the timing, the context, and the way it interacts with your aging biology. Your body after 60 isn't designed to handle stimulation and release right before rest. It needs calm, it needs space to downshift. Masturbating late at night confuses that rhythm. It tricks your system into a cycle of tension and release that doesn't match your natural sleep architecture anymore. If you're finding that you fall asleep but don't stay asleep, or that you wake up feeling like you barely rested at all, this might be the hidden culprit. And the fix is simpler than you think. You don't need to give up pleasure, you just need to reclaim it at a better time, in a better way, one that supports your body rather than exhausts it. But as important as sleep is, what we're about to talk about next runs even deeper. It's not about your body, it's about your heart, because the final mistake I see in older men isn't physical at all, it's emotional. And it could be the very reason you're feeling more disconnected, more hollow, or more alone than you've ever admitted out loud. Let's talk about that mistake. Mistake 4, ignoring emotional disconnection. This final mistake is the quietest and in many ways the most damaging, and the truth is most men don't even recognize it's happening. It's not something you can measure on a lab report. It doesn't show up as a number or a symptom you can point to, but over time it creates a slow erosion of something far more important: your connection to yourself, your emotions, and to the people you care about. For many men over 60, masturbation becomes more than just a physical release. It turns into an emotional coping mechanism. It fills in the silence. It masks the loneliness. It gives a few moments of control in a life that may otherwise feel unpredictable or empty. And while that may sound heavy, it's something I've heard in one form or another from countless men. Across the years, I remember one man, Bill, 71 years old, widowed, retired engineer. He told me in a quiet voice that his nightly habit wasn't really about sex anymore. It was about trying to feel something. He wasn't ashamed of it, but he wasn't proud either. And after he climaxed, he said there was this deep silence, not peace, just stillness, and sometimes a kind of ache. He couldn't name this emotional disconnection. Doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly over years. As we learn to separate pleasure from intimacy, sensation from emotion, and by the time many men notice it, they feel emotionally flat, not just sexually, but in everyday life: less joy, less connection, a kind of quiet numbness that's hard to talk about even with someone you trust. The mistake here isn't masturbation itself, it's using it to bypass emotion instead of connecting with it when you turn to it. Out of boredom, frustration, loneliness, or even stress, Without acknowledging those feelings, you're teaching your body to respond to emotional pain with physical distraction, and over time that gap grows, the body gets its release, but the heart stays untouched. But there is a better way, one that's more honest, more whole, and much more healing. Start by asking yourself why now before you begin. Is it physical need or emotional avoidance? Try shifting the intention. Use memory, warmth, or imagination that brings you a sense of connection. Not just arousal, even dedicating the experience to someone you've loved or still love can bring back a sense of meaning. Masturbation doesn't have to be hollow, it can be sacred, it can be a form of care. Not escape. Most men never think to question this part of their lives, let alone explore how it connects to their emotional health. But when they do, everything begins to shift. They don't just feel better physically, they feel more alive, more grounded, more like themselves again. And now that we've uncovered all four of these silent mistakes, there's one final piece I want to leave you with, because knowing the mistakes is only half the battle. The real question is, what do you do next? How do you take this awareness and turn it into something that actually changes your life? Stay with me, because in this closing message, I want to help you step into the kind of strength, clarity, and confidence that only comes when a man truly understands and honors his own body, thinking it doesn't matter. If there's one final mistake I've seen more than all the others combined, it's this believing that none of it really matters anymore, that at your age, the way you masturbate or whether you change anything about it isn't worth thinking twice about that. You're too old to worry about connection or hormones or how pleasure fits into your life. Now, I've heard men say at this point, why change? More times than I can count. But here's what I know after 3 decades in this field. It matters now more than ever. The choices you make with your body today aren't just about avoiding problems. They're about creating the quality of life you want in the years ahead. When you keep watching porn made for younger brains rush through the act with a tight grip. Do it late at night to chase sleep or use it to escape emotions you don't want to face. You're not just forming habits. You're shaping your nervous system. You're training your brain to disconnect from what you truly need, whether that's rest, connection, or peace of mind. But when you choose to bring awareness, care, and presence to this very private part of your life, something begins to shift. You start to feel more energy, you start sleeping better, you notice a quiet sense of pride returning. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer ignoring yourself. You're listening again, you're showing up for yourself in a way most men never do. This isn't about guilt, it's not about shame, it's about choice. And at 60, 70, 80 years old, you still have it. You still have the power to choose how you care for your body, your mind, and your heart. And it starts with something as simple and as sacred as how you touch yourself. So don't make the mistake of thinking it doesn't matter, because it does. And the difference it makes might be more powerful than you ever imagined.